So yeah, I have been asked to give a bit of a talk. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. So I asked Venerable Chidananda what to talk about, and she suggested about dealing with craving. Is that what he said? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to talk about dealing with craving here. So this is quite profound, right? Because most people think craving is good. Yeah, craving is kind of great. That's what kind of makes the world go round. If there was no desire, no craving, kind of everything would stop up, and that would be bad, right? Would it? Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. And this is kind of one of those very interesting questions. If everything stopped, would it really matter anyway? Maybe it's actually a good thing. Sometimes I think we have things really upside down in this life. Yeah, we think some things that are bad actually are kept to be good things, and good things actually are bad things. So I don't know, but I'm going to start more kind of easy with this, and not kind of start in the most profound place. Make sure everyone is on board. Yeah, everyone is on board. Yeah. And it is true that people in the world like to enjoy their pleasures, right? We tend to see craving as a good thing, because craving kind of is what then kind of makes us go out in the world and enjoy things and amass the things that we can enjoy, all of these kind of things. And of course, there is some truth to that. Yeah. It is not entirely wrong here, because when you crave, then you do kind of have some enjoyment in life based on that craving. Yeah. And I think that is a very important thing to remember. I think it's important that on the spiritual path, we don't deny the happiness of the ordinary life. We don't try to be super duper arahants before we even get started on the path. Yeah. If you try to be an arahant when you are still kind of stuck in the world, like most of us are, then you're just going to suffer. That's going to be really bad for you. And so one of the ways of thinking about the spiritual path is that as you abandon craving, you increase the spiritual qualities in yourself. Yeah, so there's like a kind of two things happening simultaneously. The ordinary worldly happinesses get less interesting, and the spiritual happinesses go up. But you don't abandon those worldly happinesses before you start to have some kind of success on the spiritual path. If you try to go too fast, you end up suffering even more. That's a bad idea. Yeah, it's not enough suffering already. We don't need to kind of increase the suffering in life. There's already enough problems in the world as there is. So don't deny the enjoyment of the worldly things. Instead, and on the initial stages of the path, the point is not to deny the happinesses of the world. The point is to enjoy the happinesses of the world in a responsible way. That's why we have the 5 precepts. Yeah, that's why we have the 8 precepts on retreats. That's why we have ideas like kindness, for example. These kind of things, because all of these things, they create a container for how to live the worldly life without kind of abandoning all happiness straight away. This is so important, and you can see people even in monastic life make this mistake. They become monastics and they become really kind of gung-ho straight away, and they're going to be, they're going to kind of practice the toughest possible way straight away, and it doesn't work. Yeah, and the result very often of that is that you end up disrobing it because you can't sustain it. It's unsustainable. Mind wants happiness. The mind craves happiness, and if there is no happiness, then we have a big problem in life. Things don't really work anymore. Some kind of happiness is required. And if it isn't the spiritual happiness, then some degree of worldly happiness is important. So that's all very good. So please keep that in mind. But there are obviously some downsides with craving. Yeah. So as we practice the spiritual path, we want also to reduce that craving somehow, to make it less of a problem, so that the path kind of unfolds in a natural and a positive way. And to be able to do this, it is actually quite important to understand, I think, the downsides of craving. First of all, we have to have right view. Yeah, everything in Buddhism starts with right view, the beginning of the Noble Eightfold Path. And as always, right view really is the way I like to kind of think about right view. It is understanding the difference between happiness and suffering. Where there's happiness in the world and where there is suffering in the world. And really getting what that is about. And that's a very simple way of thinking about the idea of right view. But I think it's also very accurate. This is why the Buddha talks about things like rebirth and karma and all of these kind of things, because really what it is at core, it is an understanding of happiness and suffering in life. So craving, what are the downsides of craving? What are the problems? So let's get some right view about craving. Yeah, at least the kind of intellectual right view, and then we hopefully can make it sink in over time. So one of the kind of obvious problems with craving is that you may sit in your meditation happy and content. Yeah, I'm sure it's happened to you before. You're very peaceful. Things are really nice. And then one bad thought arises in your mind, one craving thought. Yeah, before you know it, all the contentment is gone, right? Craving is there, desire is there, and kind of is completely blown everything. Yeah. And so this is kind of one of the really problematic things about craving, is that it really destroys the meditation. First of all, if you have craving when you start your meditation practice, you try to sit down and there's too much desire within you, you're not even mindful. It's impossible to be really mindful when craving is strong, because craving is always about the future. Craving is about something, it's a place where you want to be. It's a kind of something lacking in the present, and it is this drive towards something else in the future. And because craving is about a lack and it's about the future thing, it means that mindfulness becomes impossible, because mindfulness is about being present. Yeah. So that's kind of a very obvious reason why craving is problematic if you are serious about the spiritual path. Yeah, so we want to be able to draw the mind into the present moment. And the aspect of the path that overcomes that craving is really right effort. Yeah, right effort, that is then the reflection on why craving is problematic. Thinking about this in the right way. I'm going to talk much more about this later on, how to reflect on this so we can abandon the craving and desire. And then you use that right effort to bring the mindfulness back again, yeah, to allow the mindfulness to arise. And very often, as I was saying yesterday during the talk at IMC, very often it's just a nudging of the mind. Yeah, it's just kind of a reminder. Okay, you actually know this already, but we forget. And then you remind yourself. And the moment you remind yourself, then the mind becomes quiet, ideally straight away. Very simple nudging of the mind. Okay, wait a minute. Craving is bad. Okay, I know that. And kind of you abandon. That's the ideal way of doing it. Yeah, not easy, but it's the stronger right view you have, the more this will actually work in practice. So this is the first bad thing with craving. It takes you out of the present moment. The second bad thing with craving, which is maybe even more bad, baddest, this is kind of badder. And this is that it is very deluding. Yeah, we get deluded when we crave. And you will notice this in your own life, that when you crave things that you normally know are bad, you do them, yeah, because of craving. Yeah. Why do people have, extramarital affairs, these kind of things? Well, basically, it's because at that time, it seems right, and then you regret it afterwards, but at the time, it seems like the right thing to do. Yeah, and these kind of things are rife in the world. Yeah, they're everywhere. And so you know that actually when you are enthralled to craving, you are deluded. Your mind isn't clear. You don't really know what is going on. You don't know up from down and down from up. And then that's why you have to be very, very careful when your mind is defiled. The same thing with anger. Anger is also deluding, right? When you're angry, you will do things that you normally wouldn't do. You may shout at somebody. You may, do I don't know whatever. At least you have some bad thoughts at the very least. And so all of these defilements are deluding of the mind, and we don't really understand. And for that reason, we are unable even to practice morality properly, because we are pulled in the wrong direction by these defilements of ours. That's bad news, right? That delusion is strengthened by these things. So again, another very good reason to overcome strong desire and strong cravings. And this is also why real insight on the Buddhist path only can happen after a state of samadhi. And the reason is very simple, because as long as there's a little bit of desire in the mind, even the tiniest bit of desire in the mind, it deludes the mind, it skews the mind, distorts your outlook. And because it distorts your outlook, it's impossible to have real insight at that point. That's why you abandon the 5 hindrances, get the state of samadhi, then real insight is possible. Anything before that is going to be partial at best. slightly deluded, always slightly deluded, but at least maybe approaching a little bit. Obviously, the less desire you have, the less craving you have, the more clarity you have. So that's good already. But in the end, at the end, you have to kind of abandon these things completely if you want real insight. It's a tall order, but it's kind of interesting because it is a very happy state not to have any desire. What does it mean not to have? It means complete contentment, right? And we all know what contentment feels like a little bit. It's nice, yeah? When you're really content, you don't want anything, you just sit there, and you're so happy to sit there. It feels incredibly nice. And so we know that contentment is a very positive thing. And so by reducing this, what does it say in the Dhammapada? Contentment is the highest wealth. You know that verse? No, Dhammapada? Yeah, it's a beautiful verse. And the reason that works is because, you know, the whole point of acquiring wealth for most people is that you don't need any more wealth, right? You come to a point, okay, now I have enough. Of course, that never happens. You never have enough. But anyway, that's kind of the idea. You know, more and more and more, and eventually become content. But what if you can become content to begin with? You don't have to pursue all that bloom and wealth, right? And so you let it go, and contentment arises straight away. That's why contentment is the highest wealth. Don't have to pursue it in like artificial means through, you know, through pursuing all of these things of the world that ultimately won't give you that contentment anyway. So that's the second reason why craving is bad. Yeah, so it stops you from being truly mindful. It distorts the mind. It hinders you in living a moral life and living an upright life and insight, all of these kind of things. But there is a third reason why craving is bad, and this is the second noble truth. Only now do I come to the second noble truth, because this is the most profound reason why craving is bad. Craving is the cause of suffering, right? How is it that craving is the cause of suffering? And this is a very important point of Dhamma, and I think very often misunderstood. Very often people will say, well, the reason why craving is a cause of suffering, because when you crave, you are suffering. Yeah, craving is suffering, or craving, the moment you crave, that kind of you suffer afterwards. Yeah, so craving is the cause of suffering. But actually, that's not what it means. That's a misunderstanding. It's a very common thing that you will hear in Buddhist circles. It actually is not correct, because craving, true, craving is suffering, because craving means that you are not united with where you want to be. Yet there's a distance between where you are and where you want to be. And as such, it is absolutely suffering. It's true. That's the first noble truth. Yeah, the first noble truth is saying that being united with what you don't like, being separated from what you like, not getting what you desire, that's suffering. That's all about. That's the craving part. Yeah, it's right there in the first noble truth. That is not what the second noble truth means. And this is why the second noble truth is so profound, and why it is so important to have a degree of faith in the Buddha's teachings. Because what the second noble truth says is that craving is suffering because it leads to rebirth. That is the idea of why craving is suffering. So because it leads to rebirth, it perpetuates this thing we call the five khandhas. It perpetuates existence. And because existence is always problematic, it's always imbued, it's difficult enough as it is, let alone if you get reborn in a bad place. Yeah. Because of that, that is why it is problematic. It is this perpetuating of the five khandhas that really is the issue, the thing at stake. And this is so important. And you can see that if you deny the idea of rebirth in Buddhism, or you underestimate the idea of rebirth, even though the Buddha says it is critical and core, if you do that, it's impossible to make sense of these teachings. How can you make sense of them? And the way you make sense of them is that you say, like some teachers do, and this is kind of interesting, to say, oh, actually, it is not craving that leads to suffering. It's suffering that leads to craving. Have you heard that being said before? There are some of these secular Buddhists, it's kind of the argument that make, actually, no, it's not craving, it's suffering that leads to craving. So let's just invert the Buddha's teachings, and come up with our own teaching, which is kind of the way we think things are. No, it's suffering that leads to craving. And I don't know what you think about that, but the moment you do that, you have basically reversed the Buddha's teachings. You have inverted the sequence that the Buddha is talking about. And because of that, you're no longer you're no longer in the realm of the teachings of the Buddha. If you call that the second noble truth, well, then you have actually completely distorted the message of the Buddha. But of course, there is some truth to that nonetheless. And that's why it kind of is interesting for people, right? Because there is some truth to the fact that suffering leads to craving. Yeah, if you suffer, what happens? Many people, they go to the fridge, they have to see if there's anything interesting to eat, or maybe they look for some entertainment or whatever. So it is true, right? So it's not as if it is wrong, but it is not the second noble truth. And that is kind of the critical thing here. So they haven't really understood what is going on. They have actually denied the Buddha's teachings, even though the point they are making is actually a valid one. So if it is true that suffering leads to craving, yeah, it's actually an interesting point to contemplate a little bit. So even though it is used to explicate the second noble truth, which it shouldn't be used that way, it is still actually an interesting point. Because what it means is that when we suffer in our life, when we have problems, we always seek for a way out. We seek for a solution. Yeah, is there anyone here who does not seek for a solution when you're suffering? We want solutions, right? It's kind of obvious. We have some kind of terrible problem. You want to resolve it. You want to find a way out. You have a pain in the body. You will go to the doctor. You want to find a solution. You don't kind of just let it there. If you break a leg, you go to the doctor. You don't lie there, kind of your leg dangling, kind of broken. That's kind of crazy thing to do. You say it's my karma, so I just better bear with it. That's kind of stupid way of living the Dhamma. So we try to sort out our suffering. This is nature. And for most people, most of the time, because they don't have access to a deeper happiness, they will look for that happiness in sensual pleasures. And that's why craving is the response to suffering for most people. We look for the solution in sensual pleasures. And this is actually what the Buddha says in the sutras. He says that for ordinary people, when they suffer, they go to sensual pleasures. This is kind of how life operates. And so what this shows us is that on the spiritual path, if we are going to be able to find a way out of the sufferings of ordinary life, out of the problems that we have, and we don't want to get into craving, we don't want to overindulge in sensual pleasures, we have to find an alternative happiness. We have to find that satisfaction somewhere else, apart from the sensory world. And this is especially important as a monastic. Yeah, this is why on the monastic path it is so important to have access to happinesses of the mind, happinesses of meditation, happiness of practicing the spiritual life in the right way. That is why it is always dangerous for any monastic to get too involved in society. There is endless demand on you as a monastic to teach. This morning I got an email from India saying, please come to India. We want to invite you to India, right? This happens all the time. And unless you set boundaries for yourself and you know your limitations, what is going to happen is that you get so involved in the ordinary world, you lose the happiness and pleasure that comes through meditation practice and the spiritual path, and you're going to incline towards sensuality again, because that is the only alternative happiness. And this can happen very easily in monastic life. This is one of the main reasons why you get monastics disrobed. They disrobe because they get too involved with things. They lose maybe the happiness of the spiritual path, and before they know it, they are, married or whatever. This is the way things tend to happen. So it is important, and this can be hard to understand from a layperson's perspective, because from a layperson's perspective, well, if things are going badly, you always have ways of distracting yourself. If you haven't got that in the same way on the monastic life. So for monastics, it is important to withdraw and pull back and to actually live that spiritual path to the fullest, to enable that to be able to carry it through to the very end, and not kind of lose that lose that ability to access the spiritual happinesses. So it is interesting, but really this is the final reason why there is a problem with craving, because actually it is the source of rebirth. And to give an idea of what this means, there is a sutta that I recently talked about, and for those of maybe if some of you have listened to my teachings, I heard this already, but this is a very nice sutta in the Itivuttaka. You know the Itivuttaka? Heard Itivuttaka? Okay, so the suttas are divided into 5 nikayas, 5 collections. the long discourses, middle discourses, the connected discourses, the connected discourses, the numerical discourses, and then you have the Khuddakanika, the short discourses, right? Actually, that's the biggest one. But anyway, let's call the short one. Short collection is the biggest one. And in that short collection, you have a collection called the Itivuttaka, which means something like iti means thus, Buddha means said, ka means ness, thus saidness, or something like that. And what is interesting about this particular collection is that it was remembered by a lay woman. Yeah, and so this is kind of one of the few areas where a lay woman remembered the sayings of the Buddha, and then she must have passed it on to the Sangha, passed it on to the monks or whatever who were recollecting or collecting these things. And that in itself is quite interesting, because it shows us that even in ancient Buddhism, there wasn't this, if you had something interesting to, for the rest of the Buddhist community, the four parisas, whether you were a laywoman, you were a layman or nun or a monk, didn't matter so much. If you had a good teaching, then that would be kind of kept and memorized for posterity. And that was also, this was the case of this laywoman who remembered this whole collection of suttas. And one of these suttas is called the stream, I think it is called. Is that what it's called? I think so. I think it's called the stream or whatever, something like that anyway. And sometimes a bit of thin ice. You can feel when you are on the thin ice and you say things and you feel kind of, oh, okay, better be careful here, but something like that. And in this sutta, the Buddha, then he says, imagine someone who is in a stream. Yeah, they're going downstream. They're like on the raft. Yeah, there's like a river kind of gently kind of taking you downstream. Yeah. And this raft you're on is kind of delightful. Yeah, it's kind of nice. It feels really pleasant. The weather is nice. Maybe you have some provisions there, yeah, on the stream, like some nice food like we had for lunch today, right? Kind of there. And you're kind of enjoying life, right? And everything seems fine and you're really happy. Yeah. But then there is this other person who sees you, and he sees you on this raft going down the stream. And because he can see through a few bends in the river, he can see where you're heading. And where you're heading is this pool, and this pool is full of saltwater crocodiles, monsters, whirlpools, waves, all this kind of stuff. That's where you're heading. You have no idea. You're kind of very happy on this kind of stream, And of course, the stream here is a metaphor for craving. You are craving on the stream of craving. And if you think about kind of how your life works, everything we do, every time we act in one way or another, and of course our day is full of activity. It's always run by craving, run by desire. You can't get up in the morning without desire. Can't do anything without some kind of desire. So we are on this continuous stream of desire and craving throughout the day. And this is this metaphor that we're seeing here. This is the river. The river is this metaphor similarly for the craving in our life. And where is it heading? The person who sees you, who is that person? It's the Buddha, right? It's the Buddha is the one who sees you. You hopefully consciousness sees you as well, but in the beginning, it's just the Buddha who sees you. Down the track, consciousness will see you as well, because it will understand what's going on there. Because the Buddha, he sees the human experience. He understands what it is to be a human being. So he knows that the stream of craving will take all of us down to a very dangerous place. Saltwater crocodiles, not freshwater crocodiles, saltwater crocodiles. These are the bad ones. Does anyone not understand that difference between saltwater and freshwater crocodiles? This is an Australian thing, right? In Australia, it was fascinating because the person who actually translated is called Bhante Sujato. Anybody heard of Bhante Sujato? Yeah. Okay, so he's translated. If you go to the website called Sutta Central, that's kind of his brainchild, Sutta Central. He's this person with a very big head, and inside the big head is a big brain, right? So he does things, he translates all kind of stuff. And so so straight away this is translated by an Australian, because only an Australian will get this idea what was going on there. And I'm kind of half Australian now, so I can't sort of count as an Australian. So in Australia, there are two kinds of crocodiles. They have the freshwater crocodile. It's only about 2 meters long. It is kind of cute. It's more like a pet. It's more like a pet than anything else. It has a big long snout. It's kind of small and doesn't look very dangerous. And then there is the saltwater crocodile. They become 6 meters long, right? They are fearsome creatures. And it's like, if you get caught by one of those, they'll eat you alive on the spot. It's like really, really scary monsters. So I think some of the biggest crocodiles in the world are probably found in Australia. They can be really, really massive. So that's why saltwater crocodiles is bad news. And that's why this pond down the stream that the Buddha sees for you is really, really bad news. And so then the Buddha gives you the message. He gives you the message that there is dukkha down the track. There are saltwater crocodiles downstream. So what do you do when you hear that there's saltwater crocodiles? Well, you get your hands and feet down and you start paddling like a maniac. But don't be like a maniac. You paddle kind of swiftly. You use your hands and feet to go upstream, to get away from those saltwater crocodiles. This is going against the stream. This is the Buddhist idea of not allowing that river of craving to kind of take us down the stream, take us to suffering, take us to all of these problems. So we go against the stream. And this is this idea. And then the beautiful thing about going against the stream, and initially it is very hard because the stream of craving and desire is very strong for most people, carries along with a lot of force. But as you practice the Buddhist path, as you purify your mind, as you start to understand what the Buddha is talking about, the stream gets weaker. It's easier to paddle against the stream. And when you finally get to some real samadhi on the path, some real peace and beauty in the meditation practice, the craving is almost gone completely. And at that point, it becomes very, very easy to practice the path. The path is always like this. It's hard to begin with. And as the meditation improves, it becomes easier and easier and more pleasant as you go along. And eventually, you enter a different stream. That is called the stream of the Dhamma. That's when you become a stream enterer. That's when you can really relax on that raft. Down the horizon is a pool, and this pool is just beautiful, beautiful palm trees, shaded. The most delicious food, coconuts falling down in your lap. Oh, coconut, okay, and we eat coconuts. And it's kind of really, really, really wonderful. So that is kind of the idea here of this idea of streams. And this is the Buddha's way of making us understand that the idea of rebirth, the idea of where we're heading, is actually fearsome. When you understand what is going on, it's actually quite scary because you never know where you're going to get reborn. You never know how your karma is going to ripen, and you don't know. Okay, maybe in your next life you'll be good, you'll be fine because next life you've been a good Buddhist now, you've done all the right things, so you'll be okay. But what about the life after that? Eventually, something is going to happen. And even if you stay as a human being, how many times do you want to live a life like you've had now anyway? Kind of the idea of living this exact life again, and again. Does that sound attractive to you? Does that sound like good? If you have lived exactly the life, I mean, this is the problem because lives tend to be pretty much exactly the same. We don't learn anything, right? That's number one experience. Number one learning is that we don't learn anything. No, that doesn't work. So the problem is we tend to repeat our mistakes. And so we go through the same process. You go through the same school process, same kind of parents, same problems you have in youth when you are young. Then you have to work really hard to kind of make ends meet as an adult. Then eventually you have your own children. And then your children are now that you used to be troublesome as a child. Now your children are troublesome. And then you kind of get pensioner. And then you die. And then you think, what was that all about? What was the point? And then it starts over. Go through the same thing again. How many times do you want to do this? I look at my own life. I had in many ways, very good life. I have to say that I've been very fortunate in so many ways. But would I want to do it again? Absolutely no way. No way. I mean, I've had everything good in this world, really. I don't think life gets much better, to be honest with you. And still, I have plenty of problems regardless. Do I want to do it again? No way. So even if you just get reborn as a human being, that in itself, to me, is fearsome enough to do this again and again and again, going round and round, making the same problem, making the same mistakes life after life, because we forget what we did in our last life. And because we forget, we don't take that learning with us very often. Sometimes we do, but very often we don't. So this is really the bleak Buddhist outlook, yeah? That's why Buddhists have a very bad reputation of all being very pessimistic. Yeah. But it's not really about being pessimistic or optimistic. The problem is really, is it realistic? That's really the issue, right? And if it is realistic, and if the Buddha says there is rebirth, well, in my opinion, we should take it very seriously. If the Buddha says so, we can't just dismiss it out of hand, because that's not having faith in the Buddha. That's kind of not taking refuge. That's not being a Buddhist if we dismiss it out of hand. So that is the kind of the big one, yeah, the really, really big problem in this world. And this is the issues that we are faced with. And so what then can we do? What should we be doing with this? What is the reason why we kind of make these mistakes again and again? Why are we so attracted to the world of the five senses and the kind of sensual world, even though it is so problematic? And I've already given you some of the answer, right? Some of the answer is that we are attracted to this because when we suffer, we need some kind of escape from the suffering, and the five sense world gives us that escape. And so then the alternative to that, obviously, is that if the five sense world is problematic, well, then we find the escape in the spiritual path instead, right? We find happiness through the spiritual path. And this is why it is so important to enjoy the spiritual practice. Don't make it into torture. If you make it into torture, you can enjoy the sensual world even more, right? Because the spiritual practice is torture. I remember many years ago, I travel a lot these days, and I travel especially a lot in Southeast Asia, because there's lots of demand for English-speaking monks in Southeast Asia. And I was in Singapore. I go to Singapore at least twice a year. And I was staying in this apartment with this man. And this man said to me that, I went to one meditation retreat, and it was so much suffering. I'm never, ever going to go on meditation retreat for the rest of my life. And I said to him, meditation retreats are not all the same. Yeah, sometimes Ajahn Brahm, go with Ajahn Brahm, you can really relax, you can really enjoy everything. It's very different from what other. He said, no way, meditation is bad, it's evil, it was so much suffering. I've never been so tense in my life as I was on this meditation retreat. I'm finished with meditation retreats, right? And this is how many people practice the spiritual life. They go on these retreats that are really super intense, and they have this idea that if you suffer a lot, it will kind of lead to some kind of benefit down the track. And very often it doesn't lead to all that many benefits. All it leads to, sometimes maybe you suffer so much that the mind lets go and you have a moment of bliss. And you think, now you have really kind of found what bliss is about on the Buddhist path. Suffer a lot, then you get a moment of bliss. That is the way to happiness. But actually, this is not the way the Buddha teaches the spiritual path at all. If you look at the idea of meditation according to the suttas, it is all about happiness. It starts off at the very beginning, and it starts off with having no regrets because you're living well. From no regrets comes the pamudja, the gladness of the path. From the gladness comes the piti, the joy and these kind of things. From the joy comes the tranquility. Then comes the happiness, even more happiness. Then comes the samadhi. It's like one happiness after the other one more intense, one more profound than the previous one. That is the Buddha's explanation of meditation practice. There's nothing there about having to contemplate suffering at all. And still, people get into this idea that somehow suffering, no pain, no gain kind of idea. Did they say that here in the US as well? No pain, no gain? Yeah, is that okay? Right, yeah. I don't know, probably got it from England originally. I think the British have got to kind of answer for in that area. No pain, no gain. In Buddhism, it's like no happiness, no gain, right? And that's kind of the Buddhist idea. So for this reason, it matters enormously that we enjoy the Buddhist path. So also when you live your life, daily life, when you are going to live with kindness and live with generosity in your life, do that in such a way that you enjoy it. Be playful with your kindness and generosity. Don't force yourself to be kind in times when it's very hard. Then just withdraw a little bit instead, because if you force yourself, it's going to be joyless again. Be kind in kind of random ways, right? I really enjoyed the other day. I was in Redwood City the other day, just yesterday, and I was kind of going for a walk by myself. And Americans are known to be kind of friendly people, right? When I come from people who are not friendly at all, like I'm really. So I thought, let's check out the American friendliness. So I kind of walked out and I said good morning to people. People looked at me for something. Oh, and I said good morning. Yeah, that was really nice. Yeah, people kind of respond to you, even though they were a bit shocked straight away to see some weirdo walking down the street in weird clothes. But they kind of accepted that. That's kind of nice. And you say good morning, you say hi to somebody. Yeah. And sometimes just little things like that can be, something like an icebreaker, something positive in people's life. Or even just in the corridor of this building here, you say good morning to someone, and then you get a smile on their face, because simply by being friendly, tiny little things that we can do in our lives to create something positive, and then you feel good about yourself afterwards, because you have done something kind, they have responded in a good way, and you kind of get this good feeling about things. So make sure it's fun. When you are generous, be generous at the time when you really feel like it. When you feel that you want to be compassionate towards somebody, you see a good cause somewhere, you feel really inspired about giving something to someone. You see a poor beggar on the street maybe, and you think, okay, why not give it to this beggar? Probably they have some mental illness. Probably they have some terrible history behind them. Maybe they are going to misuse your money. Who knows? It's possible. But who cares? That's actually irrelevant. Don't allow yourself to be kind of led to be too cynical about what you're doing. Do the act of kindness when you feel a sense of compassion. I was walking down the street here just before, and obviously some of these people were disturbed that I saw on the street out there. And you feel kind of sad that they have to roam around the street, that kind of condition. They should be in an institution somewhere with someone to look after them and care for them. That's where they should really be, not be on the streets. And so you do something out of kindness because you feel a sense of compassion for people who have more suffering than we have in their life. And then when you do that, when you come from your heart, when you act in a compassionate way, because you see suffering in life, then it becomes powerful, it becomes beautiful. And afterwards, you reap the positive benefit of that. You feel happy, you feel good, you feel at peace because you know you have lived well. This is the idea. So when we practice the spiritual path, whether it's meditation, it's kindness, it is compassion, it is generosity, do it in a way that gives rise to something positive inside of yourself, where you enjoy what you're doing. Don't be like a robot. Don't do things because the Buddha said so. Investigate how it works, when it works, to make it powerful in your life. Then it is really useful. Do it against with your family members, right? Like I just heard today how Nita and Sakit, how he brings a cup of tea every morning. Is that right, Sakit? I thought that was really cool, right? Every day he comes to his wife and brings a cup of tea. This is how we should practice the spiritual path within married relationships, right? This is a beautiful thing because the spiritual path should permeate our lives, regardless of what we do. Even in our married life, with our husband and wife, with our girlfriend or boyfriend, with our children, with our parents, with our friends, everywhere we practice these things in the right way. Then you are really doing things in the right track. So get that happiness out of it. When you get that, your desire for worldly things, for craving, will become less. They'll become less important because you have an alternative source of happiness. Allows craving to die down. It doesn't become so important for you anymore. This is really kind of the critical, one of the most important ways of overcoming this problem of craving. So building up the happiness on the alternative kind of happiness on the path is very, very important. So this is kind of this is one very important reason why we crave so much. So we kind of avoid that. I mentioned before the other reason why we crave is, of course, because we are deluded about things. We think that kind of happiness is in the wrong place, and we kind of pursue the happiness of the five senses because we think it is wonderful, and to kind of emerge a little bit from that delusion about the happiness of the five sense world. The Buddha gave some very interesting teachings about the limits of that five sense world. And there's one sutta in particular which I teach in every retreat when I teach a meditation retreat. It's called the Potalaya Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 54. So check it out if you have a chance. I don't know how many of you read suttas here occasionally. wow, this is a really educated lot. Okay, so that's really cool. This must be Venerable Sampusika's fault that you are also well versed in this. That's wonderful. And Venerable Chidananda as well. Great. So, and I learned it from Ajahn Brahm. We all learn these things from each other, It comes from the Buddha and it kind of goes down. So it's marvelous. So anyway, so if you haven't, check it out, this sutta out. And this sutta is all about the similes for sensual pleasures and their shortcomings. Do you know this particular sutta? The Buddha talks about the similes. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, you've probably done it before, but it's always worthwhile repeating because it's very powerful and it's very useful to contemplate. And remember, what we're doing here is we're contemplating something to attain more right view, more clarity, seeing the world with more in a proper perspective, the way the Buddha saw the world. That's kind of the idea behind this. Yeah. The idea here is not that we reject sensual pleasures kind of out of hand and say, okay, this is all evil. We're going to just do spiritual practice. The idea is just to give you a different perspective, to guide your mind naturally, not by force, but naturally in a new direction. So one of these similes is this simile of a dream. Yeah. The Buddha says sensual pleasures are like a dream. And in a dream, everything can, if you have a good dream, not nightmares, this is about good dreams, right? In the dream, when you dream, oh, everything is so beautiful, yeah. You have kind of this, like it says in the sutta, you see the meadows, you see the mountains, yeah, everything is kind of the blue water in the stream, and get some nice food, and, maybe everyone is really friendly to you because it's a nice dream. And then you wake up, it's all gone. What happened to all those nice things? They're all gone, they disappeared because it was a dream, right? And the Buddha says that the sensory world, sensual pleasures are like a dream. Yeah, that's kind of fascinating. Yeah. And when you start to think about what the sensory realm is like, it is like a dream for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons, because so much of the sensual pleasures are actually in the craving for those sensual pleasures. It's the movement towards the sensual pleasures that actually is often more important than the actual experience itself. If you're going to have dinner, for example, right, it's kind of all the making of the dinner, right? Putting together, getting the right kind of spices together and the kind of making it, and the kind of all that kind of anticipation that you build up as you make it. And then you eat it, gobble it down in 10 minutes and it's gone, it's finished. And what is fascinating, if you will notice yourself when you eat, very often when you eat, instead of actually enjoying that mouthful that you're eating right now, your eyes are already on the next mouthful. Have you noticed that? You never actually enjoy what you have. So the craving is actually driving you away from experiencing the food that you're eating right now, because the craving is still there. It's driving you on to the next experience. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. But this is life for you in a nutshell. This always moving on to something, never really enjoying what you have, always driving on to some other experience in the future. In this sense, it is like a dream. It's always in the future. It never really arrives. There is no arrival in the sensory world. There's more craving, more driving on, no arrival, no contentment, no endpoint, no satisfaction. Even though craving shouts in your ear, yes, you will be content when you get this relationship, this will be the final one. You'll be really, really happy. Yeah. This house, whoa, you'll be so happy when you get this house. No more need for any house in the future. It's a lie every time. Yeah. And after a while, you start to recognize that. And you start to recognize this idea of the dream. And it is a dream because every time craving is whispering to you or shouting to you, whatever craving does, depending on how strong it is, every time it does that, it is also telling you a lie. Yeah? It never gives what it's supposed to give. It is never as satisfying as you think it will be. That beautiful new house that you got, soon enough, cracks start to appear rather. Soon enough, something goes wrong. Soon enough, it gets dirty. You get a large house. Whoa, so much to clean. If you have a cleaner in your house, the cleaner might not have a good character. You have to look after them, but at least you have to pay them properly. Endless problems, yeah, regardless of what you do. You don't know what's going to happen around the corner. Always problematic. Yeah. This is the idea of the dream of the sensual pleasures. Relationships, sometimes they're good. Sometimes they last for a while. The really good relationships where you find a person who is very compatible with you, well, they end in tragedy when eventually one of you dies. Yeah. And that's the way it goes. We have to die at some point. So even the best relationships are deeply flawed because of the attachment that you build up in a good relationship. It's going to be a lot of suffering when the person dies at the end of it. So it is all kind of, the more you look at it, the more fraught it is with problems, the more difficult it is. The dream is never, reality never lives up to the dream of craving. It never has the ability to deliver what it promises. So reflect on that. Remember that. I know Ajahn Brahm has this beautiful contemplation that I remember. I recall it only very recently when I kind of remembered for some reason some of his early teachings. And this is a teaching, is what they call the and then what teaching, the and then what contemplation. You heard about that one? It's a really cool contemplation, because the moment you ask yourself, and then what, it breaks the spell of the sensual pleasures. Okay. If you think about a relationship, you have this kind of idea of someone you really want to get into a relationship with, right? Oh, this girl, this boy, wow, they're so wonderful. And usually the fantasy kind of ends when you're kind of coming together, right? Now, kind of, okay, we made it. We are kind of now a couple. That's where it kind of stops, right? The fantasy stops at kind of the high point of, where whatever it is that you are thinking about. But once you ask the and then what, that is where it breaks the spell. Suddenly understand, actually, there's much more to it. It is not as simple as that. And Ajahn Brahm, the classical kind of example that he gave was always of the kind of the cowboy kind of rides off and he gets kind of the girl or whatever, and they kind of ride off into the sunset, right? That's what happens. And the cowboy movie ends, right? And Ajahn says, and then what? What happens after they ride off into the sunset? Go back home, they have kind of a domestic argument, and they kind of have to do the dishwashing or whatever. That's kind of what happens afterwards. And that's kind of fascinating, isn't it? Because that's the truth of it. The Hollywood movie, guaranteed it's a lie, right? It doesn't work like that.
Or he brings her tea.
That's a good. That's a pretty good end. That's a good ending, right? Okay, but it doesn't bring her. It's not all the time he brings tea, right? There's more to that life than bringing tea. So and then what is a very, very nice contemplation, and it does something to you when you think like that. So this is one of those beautiful symbols. Another symbol that I always was very powerful for me, and I teach it all the time. So you probably heard it many times before. But this is for me the symbol of the borrowed goods, and this is the very simple idea that everything we have in our lives is borrowed. It's something that you have it for a while, then it has to go again. Everything in this world is like borrowed things. But the delusion says, this is my stuff. This is my apartment. Have you bought this apartment? Is it yours? Now you're renting it, or you're renting it? Okay, so it's not, so you're renting it, right? So this is the good kind of contemplation for you. So, but we have this idea that when we own something, we have this kind of wrong theory about it. We see it as mine. And when we see it as mine, we think of it as far more permanent than it actually is. So the Buddha has this beautiful simile of this is a man in this case, a man who kind of borrows a carriage as in ancient India and has some jewelry or whatever, and he drives into town and people say, wow, look at this wealthy person, driving around in a carriage, beautiful gold jewelry or whatever. And then afterwards he comes back again, and the people who lent it to him, they take it all back. And then how do you feel? Suddenly you had all the praise of the people saying, look at this wealthy man. Your ego gets built up because, I'm wealthy, right? I'm better than you are because I'm wealthy or whatever. And you know how the ego works with these kind of things. Everything is taken away. You feel like deflated. You feel naked. It's all gone. It wasn't really for real. You didn't have those things. You allowed your ego to be influenced by things that actually aren't really real. And we do that all the time. We identify with our possessions. We identify with the things around us. You may wear certain things, and you think, I'm a monk. I wear this weird clothes. I must be a monk because I wear weird stuff. But you have earrings. Actually, you have some nice earrings, right? So maybe, I don't know if you identify with your earrings. Maybe you do, because after a while they become part of your personality, right? This is who I am. So we identify with the way we dress, with certain clothes, with the kind of a place we live, with a community that we belong to, with all of these things in this world. And we forget that all of these things around us, everything, it belongs to this world. We only have it for a very short time. And then we have to give it up again. It is borrowed stuff. Everything we own in this life is borrowed goods. All the relationships we have, husband, wife, children, parents, friends, acquaintances, Buddhist, Kalyana Mittas, whoever they might be, it's all borrowed stuff. Our status in society, who we think we are, our position in the family, our position in society, our educational background, whatever it might be. All of these things are borrowed stuff. They're going to have to go. Sometimes they go before we die. At the very latest, it has to go when you die. It does not belong to you. And so if you start to think, Sakit, okay. If you start to think of everything in your life as this, like this apartment, right? When you think about this apartment, it feels different to rent an apartment compared to owning it, right? If you own an apartment, thinking, how can we make it up really nicely? What can we do to it? Because it's my place, right? I'm going to make it really nice. I'm going to spend money on it. But if you rent a place, you're not going to spend lots of money making it up nicely. It will only benefit the owner afterwards. And you're going to say, what is kind of, okay, we're going to live here. We're going to make it nice enough, but you're not going to do too much. It's a different mindset. And so that mindset is what you want to bring to everything in your life. All your relationships, all the people around you, everything you own. It is temporary. It is not going to last. You start to think about life in a new way. And you start to invest in things in a different way. Investment is really the critical thing here. What do we actually invest in? How do we invest our time? How do we invest our limited resources? I always like to say it is the Buddha. He is the #1 investment advisor. We think that Goldman Sachs or whatever they're the investment. Actually, they don't know anything about investment. They're clueless. They think long-term investment means like 20 years. No, long-term investment means like 100 lifetimes. That's long-term investment. Right? So the Buddha is the best long-term investment advisor. And he tells you, instead of investing in things that only last this lifetime, we invest with a really big view of things. And that, of course, happens not with what you gain in this life, but how you gain things in this world. How do you live? Not what do you acquire? What do you build up? How do you acquire those things? And if you can acquire good relationships, if you can acquire progress in your work, if you can acquire the worldly goods in the world in a good way, in a good-hearted way, through kindness, through living in a good way, then you are a winner in both respects. You have a good life here and now, and you're also investing for the long-term future. And this is kind of the beauty of it. We don't really have to change our life all that much. All we have to do is change the attitude to how we do things in this life. This is the beauty of it. You can still work in Silicon Valley. You bet it's on the place you have to work, so you've got to work in Silicon Valley. So still work here, and you do what is necessary in this part of the world, right? But you do it in a new way, with a new attitude. With an attitude, actually, I should care about the people around me. It is not really about getting ahead, because who cares if I get ahead in this life? It is going to be over in a short time anyway. What matters is the quality of the heart that I bring to my work, to my relationships, to my spiritual community, to everything. That is what is important. And then you're building up something that really carries on into the future. The Buddha said there's only one thing that we own, that is our karma. And this is how you build up that karma, through living in a good way. That is what you take with you into the future. Everything else is borrowed goods. I don't know, to me, it's a very simple, easy to understand simile of the limitations of the ordinary world around us. And for that reason, I think very useful very often, and very powerful to reflect on. So these are some of the ways to think about these things, to kind of overcome some of our attachments and cravings to that world. My leg is asking for some bit of respite. And so this is kind of how we sort of start out on this practice, how we kind of gradually acquire that right view. This is all really about right view. It's about having a perspective on existence, which is different from most people's perspective. And it also gives you an idea of the importance of rebirth, right? Because the rebirth here is what gives you the idea of what it means to invest for the long term. People will say, sure, but I mean, you also want to be moral even if you have one life, which is true. But it changes, it kind of weights things in a much more powerful way if you have the idea of rebirth. Suddenly it becomes really significant in a far more important way if you bring the idea of rebirth into the equation. One life, it is very limited. Once you have rebirth, actually, it starts to really make sense how this whole thing works in a much more profound way. So it is very interesting. Therefore, the idea of rebirth is really, really important in Buddhism. And I'm dismayed sometimes to see that this is underplayed in Buddhist circles. So if the Buddha said there is rebirth, if we take the Buddha as our teacher, we have an obligation to take it seriously. Yeah, we may not know there is rebirth. It's good to acknowledge that we don't know it, but at least we should take it seriously. We should consider it carefully, and we should see whether maybe there is some truth to it if the Buddha taught these things. It's really, really important. How long have I been speaking for now? Okay, almost an hour. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more. Is that all right? One more thing. It's one last little thing that I wanted to talk about. And this is another aspect of the idea of sensuality. Yeah, and one of the things that I find also kind of fascinating. Yeah? And this idea is something that you find in certain places in the sutras. It comes out very nicely in the Aganya Sutta. You know the Aganya Sutta? Aganya Sutta is found in the Digha Nikaya, the long discourse of the Buddha, number 27, I believe. And Aganya means something like knowledge of beginnings or knowledge of origins. Yeah, Agga is the origin, Nya is like knowledge, Jnana, understanding origins. And in this Aganya Sutta, one of the kind of really nice things about the Aganya Sutta, because it's about origins. It's really about how the universe starts, right? Every religion has an origin myth. Yeah, Christianity, okay, God creates the universe, yeah, in 7 days or whatever. Bang, there it is. God says, okay, let it exist. And then Islam has similar kind of ideas. And if you go to Hinduism, has ideas about how kind of the world comes to be. And it's all kind of, all of these religions, they start at the beginning. Yeah? Buddhism is the only one that starts at the end. So Buddhism starts with the ending of the universe, yeah? And from the ending of the universe, we get the rebirth of a new universe. So it kind of really fascinating. The Aganya Sutta begins with the ending, and then comes the ending after the beginning, if you know what I mean. And so then the universe starts to expand again. And in this expanding universe, because the universe has kind of collapsed, all the beings in that universe, they are reborn in a very high realm. It's called the Abhasara Loka. Abhasara means like the shining beings, right? These beings of incredible beauty that are basically equivalent to the jhana realms where they're reborn. There's no suffering, they're completely content, there's no sensuality at all. The 5 senses are pretty much gone. Yeah, there's nothing really happening. And they're supremely happy. They are feeding on joy, piti bhakka, feeding on joy. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Forget about kind of the the Indian cuisine. Yeah, I think I like actually Indian cuisine is great. Yeah, I really enjoy Indian cuisine, but this is even better. Yeah, feeding on joy. And so just this idea of feeding on joy, I find it really attractive. But once you feel some experience of joy in meditation, you know what that means. Yeah, that's all you really need to kind of sustain yourself. Feeding on joy, and then the world starts to evolve. And of course, when the world evolves, the coarseness of the world starts to come with that evolving of the world. And so the 5 senses gradually come back again, yeah, because the coarseness evolved. And then as these beings, because the kamma is limited, they start to also become more coarse according to the kamma. They start to experience the 5 sense world again, coming from this very high jhana realm. So. And then there comes a point when they start to have access to the pleasures of that world. And then according to this legend or myth, you can call it a creation myth, yeah? There's obviously a lot of truth to it, but it's also kind of mythological in a certain sense. Then there appears like a surface, yeah, something kind of delightful appears in the world. And this surface, which is delightful, everything is really dark at this time, nothing is really exists, but this kind of self-luminous surface appears. So this being thinks, well, that looks very interesting, right? So it goes down, breaks off a piece of the surface and tastes it. And of course, it is delicious, right? It's super duper delicious. It's a very high realms of existence. So everything is very delicious and powerful. The moment it tastes it, craving arises. And it's kind of fascinating. Here you are, here you have someone who is perfectly contented. Someone, for example, who comes out of a deep state of meditation, yeah? And then you disturb that meditation. You disturb that contentment with it, giving rise to craving because you are so fickle. You are so wanton. You have to go down and taste the stuff that is there, right? You taste it, craving arises. You were perfectly content. Now you have lost that contentment for a lesser happiness. Why does that happen? And this, to me, is kind of the ultimate analysis of craving and the problem of craving. And the reason why it happens is because a very important part of the sense of self, of who we take ourselves to be, is the idea of doing. Yeah, we are doers in life. And you will have noticed that in yourself, the idea of being creative is something very powerful. Yeah, most people want to be creative in a certain way. As a monk, I would like to give a creative Dhamma talk. Unfortunately, I don't do that. I say the same thing every time, but I would really like to be more creative. We want to be creative. We are doers because doing gives a kind of satisfaction. And this, I think, is exactly what is happening here. Yeah, the doer starts to express itself. So the doer wants to express itself in the world, and the way it expresses itself is by going down, tasting this thing. Yeah, this is how it does things. And yeah, wow, this is cool. Yeah, let's check it out. Let's do something. It tastes and it destroys this whole thing. That was so beautiful. The contentment, the happiness that came through that profound meditation experience, all blown away because of that. And so this is like the ultimate analysis of craving, why it exists. It comes from the sense of self. The sense of self is the ultimate villain. Yeah, this is the real problem in life. And this is why in Buddhism, when we talk about the problems of the world, when we talk about insight into the nature of reality, the main insight, the most important insight we can have is to understand the false identity that we carry with us, the full sense of self that is always there. This is why this is so important. And this is why ultimately, if you want to overcome craving, the only way you can overcome craving is to understand the non-self nature of our experience of the world. It's the only way, because as long as the self is there, as long as we have this false idea of there being some kind of identity, which is you, so long you're also going to crave. The two are completely enmeshed with each other there. So this is how it works, maybe. I don't know what you think. And this is just some ideas about how the ideas of overcoming craving. The last thing I said is really only for kind of really way down the path for most people. But in the meantime, just reflect on some of these things and make some of these teachings of the Buddha into your own right view. Yeah, gradually. As you do that, you substitute more spiritual happiness, less worldly happiness, and then things kind of come into balance in a beautiful way, in this way. Anyway, I'm not going to talk anymore now, that's for sure. So, all right, there you are now. All right. So, what should we do now? Shall we have some discussion about this, or is that a good idea? Yeah. Okay. Anyone disagrees with me? Take us first of all. People disagree. Actually, that's all rubbish. I believe it. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That realization
Okay. Okay. Yeah. 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 It's not very mysterious at all. It's kind of, I would say anyway. I mean, it's and the experience really direct experience or insight. It starts with any kind of meditation that you do. So you start to do mindfulness of breathing. Yeah. You watch your breath. You become a little bit peaceful. And every time you have success in meditation, yeah, you should look back upon your experience. You should look back at what happened during that meditation experience. You know, the way that the Anapanasati Sutta works, this Sutta Mindfulness of Breathing, Majjhima Nikaya 118, the way it works, it has 16 steps to it. The first 12 steps are about calming the mind. The last 4 are really about insight practice. Yeah, so the idea here is that we calm the mind as much as we can. Yeah, sometimes that may not go very far. Other times it may go quite deep. Then, when we come out of that experience, we look back on the experience, and that is where the insight comes from. And what you will find is, and this is actually very simple. Yeah, I mean, it can be very profound, but it can also be very simple. And what you find is that the calm and peaceful mind, the reason why it is calm and peaceful is because you have let go of certain things. Certain things have disappeared. Yeah, the body has disappeared. The senses may no longer be there. The hindrances are subdued. Yeah. So what you are seeing when you look back, you are seeing the impermanence of things. That's literally what you are seeing. The body was there. Okay, the body must be impermanent. Yeah. The hindrances must be impermanent because they are gone. The 5 senses are obviously changeable because they are gradually disappearing. Yeah. You're actually seeing impermanence in action. That is like small insights of the path as you see them. The really big insights happen when it is completely ceased. Yeah. So you come to a state of meditation where the body is no longer accessible at all. Then when you reflect on that afterwards, you see, actually, I didn't even have access to the body. That's where you understand impermanence big time, because when there's no access to it, it means that you understand it can also be given up completely. Yeah. It actually doesn't really belong to you anymore. That's where you can understand non-self and all of these kind of things. But really, every meditation experience, the deeper it is, the more ability you will have to understand how things are impermanent, how they are dukkha, because you will see that when it is gone, you feel more happy. So you understand that those things that were there must have been dukkha. And because they are gone and you're not missing them, they must also be non-self, right? They got nothing to do with you because they're gone, like a good riddance. So it must be non-self. So it's really as simple as that. But the point is that these things, as they become profound, as they become deep, they start to transform you, because you start to see happiness in a different place. You start to kind of look for things in a new way. And there comes a point when this whole process of insight this way becomes completely transformative. That's what stream entry is about. Well, suddenly, not only do you understand that some of these 5 khandhas are impermanent, and when you are looking back on your experience, what you are really seeing is, of course, the impermanence of the 5 khandhas. That's the only experience we have. Is always about the 5 khandhas, the 5 aggregates, the 5 aspects of personality. Yeah, that's what we're always contemplating. Yeah. There comes a point when that becomes like the sum total of the 5 khandhas. You see them as impermanent. And that is really the idea of stream entry. You understand the whole caboodle is non-self. The whole caboodle is impermanent and suffering. Yeah. That is what that is about. But you're building up gradually, until one day the big one kind of arrives. Something like that. You don't look entirely satisfied. Is it something? Yeah. Yeah. Well, it can happen in certainly daily life. Suddenly you let go of something and suddenly you feel very, really peaceful. Like, wow, what happened there? And suddenly things kind of occur to you. And then if you are wise, you reflect, well, what happened? Yeah, why did this happen? What actually happened? What have I let go of? And very often what you let go of is actually the doer. Yeah, because the doing, the agency is always there. And suddenly one day things start to flow. That compulsive activity, the compulsive doing is gone, and your life flows. And it feels so delightful when it just flows. Yeah, this is like kind of the ideal of kind of sports people, is that they want to get into the flow on the golf course, right? So they can kind of flow along. Yeah. But the idea, it really is just more mindfulness and just the going with things without pushing them. Yeah. Too often we push things too much. That's kind of what you were talking about before. Yeah, the difference between kind of almost like a flow state or pushing yourself to do things. And that's kind of what it. This is one little insight. I think what you will see that actually the doer there is really the thing. The disappearance of the doing is one of the big insights that you have also in meditation. Yeah, suddenly the meditation becomes really peaceful. Suddenly there's no effort anymore. It just happens by itself. What happened? Well, the doing disappeared. Suddenly it's easy. Suddenly it's natural. All that struggling, yeah, actually now it's nice. And this is, when Ajahn Brahm talks about giving up the doer, that's exactly what he's talking about. But that goes even deeper later on. Give even more. Yay! Something like that. All right. So, any other comments? Yeah, please.
Again, this is about balance. In the state, one can understand that they are loving the environment and centered. And then you have to be in the world. I'm trying to see how much of our external world is a platform for us to deepen our practice and understand where we are in our path. And
yeah.
Is it easy to
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of work we still have to do.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how important it is to throw ourselves out there, but to understand that this is kind of the test.
Yeah, in many ways it is a test. Yeah, and I think that's a nice way of thinking about the ordinary life. It is a test of my integrity, my ability to react well to people around me at all times. And I think I don't think we should strive to have that sense of awareness with us at all times in the world, because I think you're putting the bar way too high. I think it's almost impossible, as you mentioned before. But what we should strive for is, at the very least, to live with integrity and live with kindness in that world. That is really what we can do more of. Yeah. And I think if you are able to purify that aspect of things, even the way you think about people around you, yeah, having a sense of compassion when you see people doing stupid things in the world, that's actually quite hard. But if we can do that much, wow, actually we're doing really, really well. And if you can do that, then when you do come back on the meditation retreat or even in your daily practice, actually the practice is going to work well, because you have laid all the foundation stones into place. Yeah, you are ready to practice. This is that is how it can be used in the right way. This is why you want to kind of live that life as well as you possibly can to enable the meditation to work later on. Yeah. So, but there comes a point when worldly life also becomes an obstacle, because there is a limit for most of us to how much we can do these things. And there comes a point when you kind of have to make choices, difficult choices about what we really want to do. And sometimes, one of the things that people say, well, how do we make choices in life? This is one of those very interesting areas. How do we choose anything? So let's say that you have a career options open. Someone says, okay, you can now get promoted in this way. You can have an even more stressful life if you want. Yeah, every time you get promoted, guaranteed you get more stress. More salary means more stress. That's kind of the iron law of the universe. So, and so then you ask yourself, and this is kind of one of those beautiful things that the Buddha says in the sutras. When are you going to make a choice? What you should ask yourself is, which choice, which avenue is going to give me the most good spiritual qualities? That is what you should ask. So if I choose A or I choose B, which one is where I'm going to have the most good qualities in my life? Which is the place where I'm most likely to have the least bad qualities? Yeah, so so then there comes a point when the stress becomes too much and you can't handle it anymore, and you start to decline in good qualities. That's when the career becomes a problem. And so any choice that we make in this life should ideally be based on those kind of considerations. So I, sometimes in my monastery and when I'm with Ajahn Brahma, I said, should I have Ajahn Brahma as my teacher? Am I getting better qualities? Yeah, I'm getting, okay, let's stay with Ajahn Brahma, yeah. But seriously, yeah, I actually do ask those kind of questions, even though I don't have much doubt about it. These are the kind of questions we should ask. And then you have a very good guideline for making choices, because people find making choices so difficult. But if that is kind of at the back of your mind, where will I grow the most in spiritual qualities? Not decline in good qualities, decline in bad qualities. That is where that's the choice you should make. Yeah. Yes, please.
So,
Yeah.
I really benefit from renunciation and letting go. Feel wonderful on retreats or in other states.
Yeah.
And then sometimes coming back to the world, I notice I can develop a subtle aversion.
Yeah.
So even though I'm not trying to be in a cycle of craving,
yeah.
It's almost like my mind is like creating a bad state regardless of the craving. It's just aversion.
Yeah.
In a kind of sticky, subtle way.
Okay.
It can feel even moralistic.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not doing this thing. That's good.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that it actually blocks my heart or feels. So how do you hold this balance between not craving, not feeding into craving, feeding into sensual pleasures, but being with it, like without feeding aversion? Right.
Yeah. I mean, some aversions are good aversions. Aversion towards doing bad is a kind of a good aversion, right? But when I use the word aversion, I don't mean ill will. I just mean, oh, no, I don't want to go there. It's kind of it's like, seeing a cesspit or something like that. You don't have ill will against cesspit. You just, it's just disgusting, right? Yeah. But it's the same thing with bad qualities. And having that against the world, if you enjoy seclusion, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. So you should kind of look at that kind of aversion. Hey, you want to renounce? Give us some brown robes. Get some brown robes for the captain. So, okay. So all those villains in the James Bond movies, they always have a cat on the back, right? Okay, he didn't like that. Okay. So it is not necessarily a bad thing. So judge if you have some aversion to the world. This is kind of this is what the Buddha almost talks about. Yeah, having kind of a sense of the world is just kind of, this is what they talk about when they talk about nibbida in the sutras. So if you do have some good meditation states and you have success, part of it could be that, not necessarily bad. But of course, if it makes you sometimes kind of look at people in the wrong way, that is when it becomes problematic. So just remember to have compassion for people. Yeah, remember they are trapped in where they are. They don't have that kind of view that maybe you have with the Dhamma and all these kind of things. They are trapped in the world. They have their habits that they have kind of grown up with, and they have built up over a very long period of time. They don't have the ability to be anyone else than what they are. It's fascinating. So often we ask other people in our life to change. It's kind of classic as husband and wife, they want the other partner to change, right? It's kind of classic kind of thing in their life. But when we know how difficult it is to change ourselves, we stop asking other people to change, because it's very hard to change. And once you see that in the world, how hard it is to change, how habituated people are to their bad habits, and how you actually deep down, probably they want to be kind, probably they want to do the right thing. At the very least, they want to be happy, and they put all these roadblocks in their own way for happiness. How can you not have compassion for them, when you see that? So when you see people doing bad things, the only logical response is to have compassion for them, because they don't know what they're doing. When you do something dodgy, have compassion for yourself, because you are trapped in your own bad habits, right? And this is such a beautiful response to the world. And you don't you don't really get angry anymore after a while, because it's senseless to get angry with people. They don't know what they're doing here. And so this is basically a non-self. This is kind of very practical non-self reflection, because it's not, as long as we think that there is a self there, something which chooses to do bad things. Yeah, out of spite, I'm going to be bad and evil person. Kind of we make people responsible for their badness, even though they're not responsible for the bad things that they do. And that's a very powerful kind of understanding of the world. And the thing that gets in the way of us accepting that is because we feel ourselves that we are responsible for our actions. Yeah, it feels like I am doing these things, and we don't see the degree to which we are conditioned. And if you see your own conditioning properly, you start to have compassion both for yourself and also for others, because you see, actually, I'm trapped in this conditioning. You're trapped. I like to say you're trapped in your personality. It's kind of weird because we tend to be so proud of our personality. Yeah, I've gone to school, I've learned all these kind of things, I have all this knowledge and understanding, I can say all these Pali words. It's true, yeah, I can. And so you get, and you kind of build up this personality, and if you're proud of it, not understanding actually it's a trap, the personality here. You are trapped in habits, trapped in certain ways. And actually what you really want to do is release yourself from that personality, first of all, from your bad habits, but ultimately completely. This is kind of the paradox of all this. So, yeah, something like that. Yeah, please.
So you said, right, that, like in your career, if you're making choices, then make a choice that helps you go towards your growth, right? More and more towards our growth. I think we do, but then there are circumstances in life, right? At this point, I need my job, and I know it's stressful, but I have my realities that I have to take care of. So I'm kind of constantly struggling. What should I do? Because I can't give up or change, because I need to do what based on my reality. I have to take care of this right now. But then, I also know it's causing me a lot of stress. So I'm trying to kind of always.
It's tough. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. That's the truth. That's the reality. But sometimes it's very hard. Sometimes there are no good choices, and you have to choose the least bad choice. Sometimes, that's often the reality of life. Sometimes there are one bad, one even worse. Okay, choose the one that's bad. So there are always little things you can do. So do the little things. Do what works, and then sometimes you will come across a fork in the road. That's when you make the choice. When you come to the fork. In the meantime, if you have to do what you have to do, do it.
And I really like what you said just now about compassion, because there was one question I was going to ask you. Because, we don't want craving, but if you see the corporate world, it's full of craving, right? We have goals, we have to reach there. And, if you reach there fast, then they want it faster and faster. And that's how we do. And in that race, a lot of times you realize people will undercut you, or, you will not be treated kindly, or you will be treated very wrongly by the people who will be working together with you. But I think the sense of compassion, because there is no other choice but to, because they're doing it because of their conditioning, keeping that in mind, and just, there's no other choice but compassion. That was like something that really opened up something,
Good,
understanding for me.
Excellent. Yeah, glad to hear that. One of the strange things that I have seen in my life is that some of the people that I have seen who are most successful are actually very kind people. I think, I know some people who are incredibly successful in, they built up companies from scratch and these kind of things, entrepreneurs. And some of the people, I know they're really good-hearted people. And the reason why they have been successful is because they draw people to them. People are attracted to people with good hearts. People feel, they don't feel, vulnerable around someone who's kind to them. And if in a company position, if you are the person who is kind and you don't threaten anyone, people will come to you because you don't threaten anyone. All the competitive people are going to be afraid of them because they're always threatening it. But the person who is kind of kind and does the right thing, sometimes they are given the promotion because actually other people trust them. I can trust this people. They're not going to undercut me. They're not going to lie. They're not going to do something dodgy just to get a promotion. And people who are wise in the company, they will see that. And if they're not wise, they're not worth having the attention of anyway, right? Who cares about people who are unwise? Forget about them. So be kind regardless. And sometimes it pays off in really strange ways. I yeah, to my mind, I have actually some, as I said, I think some of the most successful people I have met are actually very kind people. They're not the people who are really, uh, always trying to kind of get ahead of everyone else. But actually, those who don't really care about getting it, I don't care if I get a promotion or not. I'm just going to be kind. Okay, you get the promotion. All right, okay, then I'll take it. Yeah. Please, yeah.
Thank you for your talks today. How would you define the craving relationship with wanting?
It's basically the same thing, yeah, craving and wanting. And these kind of words, we often use them, one or the other, use them as synonyms pretty much on the Buddhist path. But you could say that craving is a strong form of wanting, yeah. And you can say that craving is a negative form of wanting. So wanting, the ghost coming in. So craving is kind of the negative. Wanting can be positive. Yeah, let's say you can want to meditate, right? Can you crave to meditate? Well, I guess it depends. It doesn't matter how we use words, I suppose. But wanting is more general, I would tend to think. Craving is the Pali word tanha. The Pali word tanha actually means thirst. Yeah, and if you use the English word thirst, can also mean craving in English. It means that it's a very powerful desire, yeah? You're kind of thirsting for something, like you can't stop yourself almost. And that is kind of the idea. It gives you a sense of what the Pali word craving really means. This very strong drive inside of you, thirst for something. So these are just nuances, but they are probably used in slightly different ways in English. And it's the same thing in Pali. There are different words that are used for desire. And there are some words that are positive desires. Like the word chanda in Pali is kind of a positive desire. You have something called chanda samadhi. That is a meditation that is driven by desire. Because you have to have some desire to meditate, yeah? And so you have to at least sit down on your bottom, right? and whatever, and you have to get going at the very least. So some desire is required for the spiritual path as well. It's a positive desire. It's the desire that ends desire. Yeah. Yes, please, Amita. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's no concept of we give it everything, and then the body, the mind, mental formation, consciousness. So what goes forward and what creates the rebirth?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a kind of a very common question, yeah, and it's kind of for many people it's really hard to get their head around this because this is one of the most profound things of the whole Buddhist teaching, the idea that there can be rebirth without the self. This is exactly where one of the most profound things of Buddhism really lies. But essentially, it is the same thing as in this life. Yeah, if you compare yourself to 10 years ago. What is the connection between who you were 10 years ago and who you are now? There is a connection, right? Okay, you don't have to specify because it can be hard to specify, but there is a sense of continuity and there's also change. But if you look into that continuity, there is nothing that actually, there's no entity which is always there that carries through that continuity. The continuity is more in the sense that there are memories, there are perceptions, there are ideas that kind of go over time. But these are not permanent things. Those things in themselves are gradually changing, right? So there is continuity, but no entity. There's no individuality. There's no kind of aspect there which is permanent. And it's exactly the same thing that happens from one life to the next one, yeah? It's just the mind continues. But just like the mind doesn't have any permanent aspect in this life, in the same way, there's no permanent aspect that goes from one life to the next one. It's just the same stream of the mind that we have now that carries on from one life to the next one. Same thing. The body is just nothing anyway. The body is just kind of this appendage or whatever you want to call it that we have for a while. Yeah, it kind of goes with it well, and then okay, the body dies and the mind carries on. The body is not important. The body is it's almost like a secondary feature of the mind. Yeah, you have the body because of karma. You became a human being. Okay, so you get this body. Okay, and then you die, and then you have another body. So that kind of carries on into the future. Not so important. So it's just the mind, a stream of consciousness, they call it in the suttas, the Vijnana Sota. You find that in the Pasadika Sutta, Digha Nikaya 29. The idea of the stream of consciousness is this changing stream. Yeah, it's like a river. One of the nice metaphors to use is the idea of a river. If you stand on the banks of a river, you look at one particular point. From one moment to the next one, you're going to be looking at something different. It's not going to be the same river. The water molecules will be different. It will be an entirely different water molecule. Yeah, there's no molecule that goes across from one moment to the next one because it's moving continuously. But if you look at the overall shape of the river, the shape of the river tends to stay the same. So from a distance, it looks like the same river. But if you look close up, no, it's one thing after another, always changing. The shape of the river only changes with the seasons. There's lots of rain, the river will swell, then we get a drought, the river starts to go down, and it kind of gradually change. That's like a personality. Personality changes gradually over time, depending on how you condition yourself. But the actual spot where you're looking at the river is always changing. That's like the mind being permanent. There's nothing going across from one moment to the next one. That makes sense? Yeah? Death is over, yeah, exactly, yeah. Death is kind of just it's just a more abrupt change in our existence than we're used to. Yeah, there's lots of abruptnesses in our life. Suddenly we lose our job. Suddenly we go from layperson to being a monk. You go from monk to being a layperson, or whatever it is. That our change is happening all the time, from being single to being married, from married to being single. Changes happen, but the death is like a big change. Yeah, but it's just another change, really. The stream of consciousness carrying on.
If the stream of consciousness, like it totally makes sense. It's a stream of consciousness. Every molecule is changing at every point of time.
Yeah.
And how did the sense of self develop?
Well, that's why it is fake. Yeah, this is kind of the problem. We are imposing something false onto the data of existence. The data of existence is no basis for having a sense of self, but it is there because we are misunderstanding the data of existence. And that's why all we have to do is we have to look at those data very carefully. By looking at the life very carefully, and then you undermine that sense of self. So how it arises, that's irrelevant in the Buddhist point of view, because it's always been there. Yeah, you go back in time, you look back in previous lives. There's no first point for the sense of self. It's always been there. So Buddhism is not like a kind of religion where we talk about the first point. Everything has a previous cause. Is that an online question? Are they allowed to ask questions online? Okay.
Okay, Bhante, I'm going to go ahead and unmute so that I can be heard.
Yeah, we are hearing you. Yeah.
Okay, good. I have a little bit of confusion about the Anapanasati Sutta. Because I think it was yesterday you said something that about the Buddha taught that not to choose the where we put our attention, like to choose the breath, for instance, first. You said mindfulness comes first. He taught that mindfulness comes first. Am I confused somewhere?
No, I think that is basically the case, that mindfulness comes first, and the reason is because without being mindful, it is very hard to watch the breath without making a lot of effort. Yeah, so you want to have as strong mindfulness as you possibly can, and then the breath meditation is then the development not of so much of mindfulness, but of the stillness of samadhi.
So, if I'm beginning to learn about Buddhism, do I start with somehow learning mindfulness and then going to the breath? Or
yes, basically you start off by building up sufficient mindfulness to enable breath meditation to happen. I mean, in reality, it is more complex. I think more complicated. This is the ideal way. Yeah, the ideal way is one thing, and how we do things in practice is never going to measure up to the ideal 100%. Yeah, this is how life is like, unfortunately. Yeah. So so when you meditate in the beginning, even though you may meditate, you do meditation practice, the idea there is then to bring up mindfulness as much as you possibly can, yeah, and then when mindfulness reaches a certain strength, then you try to watch the breath and you see if it works for you or not. There's a little bit of trial and error, of course, and then gradually you learn what degree of mindfulness you require for the meditation to work, for you to enable the breath meditation. So gradually you start to see how the path works for you.
So I'm kind of wondering now, how's best would it be for me to learn how to do mindfulness?
Well, mindfulness is really just about, it's kind of allowing the kind of the world to fade away, if you like. When you sit down, first of all, your mind may be full of thoughts and ideas or whatever. So first of all, we need to kind of empty the mind, if you like, of those things before mindfulness really becomes possible. And sometimes what people do instead, they go straight to the breath. And they go straight to the breath before the mind is reasonably empty. And then they end up having all kinds of problems in the meditation. It becomes very unpleasant very quickly. So it's more like allowing the mind to develop naturally. So you sit back, you enjoy the peace, you let go of the world because the world isn't that interesting. And as you do that, there comes a point when you meditate, when your mind is reasonably clear, sadhu, sadhu, thank you, clear enough to when mindfulness of breathing becomes kind of relatively easy. Maybe not perfect yet, but reasonably easy.
Okay, so it'd be good for me to relax and perhaps before I go on to the breath being my place of concentration, to be on the breath. Is that it?
That's basically it, and kind of learning to live with the empty mind, having a mind that is empty, enjoying the empty mind, being attracted to that, bringing that up, and when the mind is reasonably, it's not going to be fully empty, but reasonably empty. And this is one of those, again, trial and error things. What does mindfulness mean for you? When is your mind ready to watch the breath, right? How empty is empty? How much clarity do you require, etc., etc.? These are the things you have to figure out through trial and error again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone should just relax, and as always, when you start out your meditation, make sure that you are comfortable. This is kind of one of the big mistakes that many people do in meditation practice. They're not really comfortable. And if you're not really comfortable, it's hard to let go of the body. So make sure that you are at ease, you are comfortable, and you take a lot of time to relax. And after a bit of activity, it takes a bit of time for the mind to settle down. So just take that time. Allow things to settle down. Allow the mindfulness to arise. And then when the mindfulness arises, that's when you are really ready for the meditation proper. And one way to think about the idea of mindfulness is this ability just to allow the world to flow, not having any resistance inside of yourself, not judging anything, but just allowing things to flow by themselves without hooking on, desiring, or resisting anything at all. And as you do that, mindfulness becomes established. So get into that flow with the world. And as the flow gets clear and the mind gains that clarity that is required, then you can gently go to the breath. And don't forget the importance of the attitude in your meditation. The idea of having a sense of gladness and gratitude and joy. And sometimes very simple reflections can give rise to a lot of joy. Reflections like the reflection on the Kalyana Mittas, having the Buddha as your teacher, having a strong monastic community, also having a strong lay community around you as well. Everyone working together, working for this marvelous goal of happiness, the end of suffering. Okay, so let's come to the end of this little meditation. And as always, just spend a few moments just to review what has happened here. And if you do feel that some good qualities have arisen, ask yourself why that is the case. Okay, let's end it there.